Let's take a look at the vaccination template built into F12 within the patient's record. Any patient that is marked as potentially eligible for the flu vaccination will have a little flu status marker here. You may also see, because of some of the national indicators, other built-in alerts in System 1 that are telling you about the seasonal flu vaccine as well. If you hover over the icon, then you'll see that there's a basic rough guide to what the criteria is for this year. That doesn't mean those patients got all of those things. It's just giving you a rough update on what the criteria is for this year, so the patient will have one of those things. If you click the template, it will appear, and there are a number of things in here which I'll go through. So on the top left hand side, there's the eligibility checker. So we've refreshed the eligibility checker for this year. And so if you click that, it tells you a number of things using some new functionality that's built into System 1. So we can see that this patient's come up as eligible to have the vaccination. So it'll tell you here. It'll also tell you if they're ineligible to have the vaccination and the reason for that. It'll give you a bit of information about the status of their COVID vaccine, their second COVID vaccine, in line with giving the booster. And it will also tell you here if they've got shingles eligibility or pneumococcal eligibility and what the basis is for that. And we can see down here, this is the reason that this patient's becoming eligible for their flu vaccination. I can see any existing flu coding in here, so I can see where that code is that's marking this patient as eligible. I could jump straight to the past medical history here, just using the standard buttons, and I can also view their previous vaccinations, and that will pop out the vaccinations screen in System 1 so that you can have a look in detail at that. If you're doing pulse checks, then that exists still this year, so you can still use the quick options to record the patient's pulse. The right hand side contains all the guidance for flu, and we've condensed that into just a few links for this year, and all of that information is stored on eHealthScope. We've got this section in the centre about making every contact count. Again, of course, there's no mandate to do any of this stuff, but you might find that as you're going through, there are certain things that you can pick out or pick up with the patient while you've got them with you. So it's telling me again that they're eligible for the jab, but it's also telling me that I haven't got their ethnicity recorded. So if I can quickly do that while I've got the patient, then the button for doing that is here, and I can record their ethnicity into the system. So I can say they're white English, and that's recorded in, and you'll see it disappears off here. There's also a quick action button to get to the carers and relationships button as well if you're able to update their carer status. In terms of giving the vaccination, this is pretty much the same as it's been in previous years. So however you do your flu vaccination at your practice, you use the correct option in here. The key difference between the orange section here and the green section down here is what's called the event details. So the orange section will record that you've done it. The green section will prompt you to record it was done elsewhere. And that's very important in terms of payment, because you'll get paid for the ones that you do in line with the standard rules. So whether you use a flu template, which a lot of practices do, so you can quickly apply a flu template that you've already pre-created there, and there are guides to do this that are shared in this playlist on YouTube. You can just record a one-off vaccination, or you can use an auto consultation. So any of those things you can use from here. And you can also record a flu consent if you want to there. You can view the patient's PSD, so if they've got a PSD added, and there's a separate guide on adding those digitally in bulk into System 1 from here, but you can also quickly add a PSD down here. And obviously if you're a prescriber, you can do that, and that goes into the system. So the orange section, just to recap, is that you've done it. The green section is that you've done it elsewhere. And the only key difference between the two things really is that, as I say, you're prompted to change to say where it's been done. So if I, for example, just record a vaccination, and it just jumps to a generic flu vaccination, what the system will then do is it will prompt me to say, where have I done that? And what we recommend is setting up a series of what are called event details templates. And again, there's a little guide on this in the playlist on YouTube, as I can see the vaccination was given at the pharmacy, and it will change and it will update the details. So if I choose that, click apply, it updates the details in this screen. If the patient refuses or declines the vaccine, there's a quick action here for adding on some notes, that because you'll have done this with the patient, and you can choose flu declined, and you can also do the flu refusal, which is the system 1 setting. You can send a text message to the patient if you wish to give them a bit of information on the vaccine. So that's just a quick click to copy this information to the clipboard, and then use the communications annex in system 1, and then just paste the message into there, and it sends them some information. If you use that AccuRx or MJOG to do the same, it makes no difference. You don't have to use this. The bottom section is for coding. So if the patient's got a persisting contraindication, so this means that they're going to be removed from the eligible list forever unless this code is removed or superseded. So any of these codes will mark the patient as ineligible for the future. But if it's just for this year, if they've come up with the eligible list, but you think actually they probably don't need it this year, or I shouldn't be giving it to this patient, so I want to remove the status marker for this year, choose one of these. So you could say not indicated, for example. If they've come up as potentially eligible, but you think not really, they don't really need it, then it's not indicated. And what that means is they'll come back next year on if they've still got the things that are making them eligible this year. If the patient's a healthcare worker, there are only 3 codes in the business rules for this. So if they've got any of those statuses, they become eligible. And they may also live with a immunocompromised person. If the patient has got any persisting or expiring flu exceptions, which are these 2 items here, they'll show in here. And then you'll also be able to see down here if the patient's got any flu invitation codes if you use the F12 flu system. The bottom right section is about adding in this 90X4 code, and you only need to do that on patients that you are vaccinating that don't meet the business rules criteria. And we've made a change to this year. So here's an example of patient is in the business rules, no need to add 90X4.